Rain drizzled softly over London's bustling city streets, the kind that made the pavement shine like glass under the glow of café lights. Inside the Willow Street Café, warmth replaced the cold, the aroma of espresso and fresh pastries filling the air. Behind the counter, Sophie Turner, a 28-year-old waitress, worked with quiet grace. Her apron was slightly creased, a strand of blonde hair had escaped her bun, and yet she moved with an ease that came from routine. Not joy, but necessity. The café was her second home, her second job, and often the only thing keeping her afloat. Sophie wiped down a table, humming faintly, when her colleague called from behind the counter. Colleague. Calling out, "Sophie, table 4's yours." "He's been waiting." Sophie smiled politely and turned. Sitting at table 4 was a man in his mid-30s, Daniel Brooks. His navy suit was pressed to perfection, his tie neatly knotted, and his phone, the latest model, lay face down beside a half-eaten sandwich. He had the look of someone used to control, used to being the one waited on. Sophie, cheerfully, "Everything all right with your lunch, sir?" Daniel, distracted, "Yes, fine. Just the bill, please." Sophie handed it over, still smiling. She watched as he slipped a sleek black card into the leather holder and handed it back without looking up. Moments later, the payment machine beeped. Then again, Sophie, softly, "Seems there's a little issue. Could be the signal. Let's just try again." But the screen flashed the same message. Declined. A few nearby customers turned to look. Daniel frowned, tapping his phone. "Daniel, that's impossible. There must be a mistake. Try again, Sophie, gently. Of course, it happens all the time, but it didn't. Not to him." His expression tightened. He checked his wallet. No cash. He patted his pockets, eyes darting, voice lower now. Daniel mutters, "I'll just call my bank, Sophie, kindly. It's okay, really." No rush. After a few seconds, he sighed, defeated. His voice was quieter now, almost embarrassed. "Daniel, I don't have another card on me. I can come back later." Sophie shook her head, cutting him off with a small smile. "Sophie, don't worry about it. It's just lunch. I'll cover it." Daniel, startled, "You can't be serious." Sophie, softly, "I am. I've seen worse days than this, trust me." He stared at her, unsure what to say. It wasn't pity in her tone. It was something rarer. Understanding. Daniel, quietly, "Thank you. I'll make it right." Sophie, grinning, "You can pay it forward someday. That's enough for me." He managed a faint smile. When he left, Sophie caught a glimpse of something human behind his professional mask. A man humbled, perhaps for the first time in years. That evening, after closing, Sophie sat counting her tips. The total barely covered her rent. Still, she smiled faintly. Across the city, Daniel sat in his sleek glass office, lights reflecting off the Thames. He signed documents worth millions, but couldn't shake the memory of the waitress who'd quietly erased his embarrassment with kindness. He had everything except that kind of grace. He closed his laptop, thoughtful. An idea began to form. A week later, the Willow Street Café was quieter. The morning drizzle had turned into a downpour, London's rhythm slowed by the weather. Sophie stood by the window serving steaming cups to damp commuters shaking off the rain. The bell above the door chimed. She turned, towel still in hand, and froze. Daniel Brooks stood there again. No suit this time. Just a navy jumper and jeans, raindrops clinging to his hair. Sophie, smiling politely. "Back for another coffee, are we?" Daniel, smiling, in a way. "Is table 4 free?" He sat where he had before, looking more relaxed, almost nervous. When Sophie brought him his drink, he gestured for her to sit. Sophie, laughing, "I can't. My manager would have my head." Daniel, "I already spoke to him. Just for a moment, please." She hesitated, then sat. Daniel, "I've been thinking about what you did last week." Sophie, shrugging. "It was just lunch." Daniel, gently, "No, it wasn't. You didn't have to help a stranger, especially one who clearly didn't need help. But you did." Sophie looked down, embarrassed. Sophie, we all have bad days. I just didn't want yours to be worse. Daniel smiled, then reached into his bag and slid an envelope across the table. Sophie, frowning. What's this? Daniel, just open it. Inside was a letter and a check. Her hands trembled as she read, To Sophie Turner, a small thank you for your kindness and an opportunity for something more. It was a scholarship application, fully funded hospitality training and management certification, offered through one of London's top institutes, sponsored by his company. Sophie, stammering, I can't accept this. You don't even know me. Daniel, softly, I know enough. I know that kindness like yours is rare, and people like you deserve a chance to do more than just survive behind a counter. Tears welled in her eyes, but she shook her head. Sophie, this is too much, Daniel. It's not charity, Sophie. It's respect. You helped me when you didn't have to. I'm just returning the favor, in a way that lasts longer than a meal. The cafe had gone quiet. Even the barista behind the counter pretended not to listen. Sophie wiped her eyes, trying to steady her voice. Sophie, I don't know what to say. Daniel, just promise me one thing. When it's your turn, you'll do the same for someone else. She nodded slowly, voice trembling. Sophie, you have my word. Daniel smiled. Then we're even. As he stood to leave, Sophie glanced out the window and saw a van parked across the street. A brand new catering van, her cafe's logo painted freshly on its side. Sophie, shocked. Daniel, what did you do? He turned back, grinning slightly. Daniel, let's just say I made good on my promise to your manager, too. Your cafe has a catering deal with my firm now. Consider it the start of something bigger. Sophie was speechless. The cafe she worked so hard to keep afloat was about to thrive. As Daniel walked away, the reflection of the cafe lights shimmered on the wet street, a silent mirror to the warmth he'd found again. But for Sophie, the weight of what had just happened hadn't settled yet. Something told her this act of kindness wasn't just about repayment. It was about redemption. A few days later, the cafe buzzed with new life. The catering business had officially launched, orders lined up, and Sophie had been promoted to assistant manager. Her once quiet mornings were now filled with laughter, the sound of espresso machines, and the scent of hope. She stood at the counter, signing a delivery form, when the door opened again. Daniel. He smiled, no longer the businessman buried behind a phone, but a man lighter, changed. Sophie, beaming. You again? You really can't stay away, can you? Daniel, chuckling. Guilty. I wanted to see how you were doing. Sophie. Better than I deserve, thanks to you. He shook his head. Daniel. No. Sophie. Thanks to you. They stood there for a moment. Strangers connected not by circumstance, but by a shared understanding that small actions can change everything. Then Daniel's tone softened. Daniel, I never told you. Why your kindness hit me so hard. Sophie tilted her head. Daniel, a few years ago, I used to run a small family bakery with my mom. When she got sick, I took a corporate job to cover her bills. I told myself it was temporary, but I never went back. She passed before I could, and I forgot what real people, good people, looked like. He paused, looking at the bustling cafe around them. Daniel, then I met you, a stranger who helped me without hesitation. That moment reminded me who I used to be, who I want to be again. Sophie felt her throat tighten. Sophie, quietly, I'm so sorry, Daniel. He smiled faintly. Daniel, don't be. You gave me something back, something money can't buy. A silence settled. Warm, reflective. Then Sophie nodded, her eyes glassy. Sophie, maybe that's what kindness really is, giving someone back a piece of themselves. Daniel smiled. Daniel, maybe it is. The bell above the door rang as another customer entered, and Sophie turned back to her work, her heart full, her spirit lighter. Daniel stepped outside, watching through the glass as she laughed with her co-workers. The rain had stopped, sunlight spilling across the pavement. He took a deep breath, hands in his pockets, and smiled to himself before walking away down the busy street. Just another face in the crowd, but changed. Inside, Sophie looked out the window one last time, her reflection merging with the glow of the cafe lights. She whispered under her breath, almost to herself, "Sophie, pay it forward." Moral reflection: a simple act of kindness can change more than a day. It can change a life.